there appears to be a concerted effort to weaken opposition parties. And I would say that you can see the evidence of that, in terms of the political landscape today, 1 year to the elections, in comparison to 1 year to the previous election.
This is the recap from Lagos Talks 91.3.
Okay, you're listening to 91.3 Lagos Talks. That is 5:09, and welcome to the recap. My name is Kolawole. It's a Wednesday, so we're just trying to get you into the mood, pushing you with even more in-depth conversations like we do on the live drive. My name is Kolawole once again, and today I have a guest. He's been here before, so I think at this point we can begin to call him a part of the family. But yes, he is someone who has been in politics for quite a while, and of course, a name when it comes to Lagos politics, particularly when you saw him on the flag for the ADC some time ago, running for the office in Lagos, the topmost office in Lagos. And right now, he's no longer there. He's now in a new terrain, so he's going to tell us all about that move and a lot more, definitely, as far as the political space is concerned. So please, Lagos, make welcome with me once again, Mr. Funso Doherty. Good to have you. Welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. So, okay. I think it was sometime last year or the year before, we sat like this, and I think we had a conversation at length, and I was asking you about your letters, and yet again you have a letter circulating the media. Say, but before we jump into the letters and everything, how have you been so far?
Well, we can't complain. We're here, dealing with the vagaries of our environment, as most Lagosians and Nigerians are. But we thank God for everything, and we are in the process of coming up to another electoral cycle now. So a lot of stuff is going on and beginning a new process of momentum, and you know how that goes.
Okay. And it's good that you mentioned elections, because it just seems like we haven't had a break since the last election. So it doesn't even feel like elections ever stopped. And here again, we are preparing for one in about a few months from now. Where do we even start from? Are we where we used to be when you compare where the electoral system or what it was like, say, in 2023? In terms of the laws, the processes, and everything. You have been in the space for quite a while. You were on another platform at the time. Right now, you are with the PDP. So a lot has happened for you, and a lot has been happening definitely generally as far as the political space in Lagos and at the federal level is concerned.
Yeah.
Are we at the same spot, or do you think we've moved positively, or perhaps otherwise?
So a lot has happened, as you've said. What I think has been quite interesting about this cycle is that it, as you noted, it's almost as if politics never stopped, right? And typically you have elections, they're over, then you talk about governance issues for 2 or 3 years before you start getting into another electoral cycle. But no sooner had we finished the last election than even talk of electoral campaigns, posters, and those kinds of things, came out. And interestingly, this was led actually by the incumbent, government, which is kind of unusual. I would say that, there's been a shrinking of the democratic space between 2022 and now.
What do you mean shrinking?
And what I mean by that is that even though we continue to have a multi-party democracy on paper, there is a sense in which the opposition parties appear to be somewhat under assault. It appears to be the case that there appears to be a concerted effort to weaken opposition parties. And I would say that you can see the evidence of that, in terms of the political landscape today, 1 year to the elections, in comparison to 1 year to the previous elections. in that sense, I think that, I'm sure you must have heard, as many people have said, that, it seems that we are moving closer to, a one-party state. I don't think we have a one-party state, but I think that certainly the room and the freedom that is given to opposition parties to operate in an unfettered way, I think, is diminished today in comparison to the past. The other thing that I would mention is the fact that just as with the last cycle, we had this question around the Electoral Act and, the promulgation of an Electoral Act ahead of the next elections. And we had a delay in the last cycle too, but somehow we managed to pull it together and get a new Electoral Act passed in time. Those concerns
in the nick of time as well.
In the nick of time at the last time, but now those concerns are there, and there's also a very strong sense that is there a chance that we might not get it done, and people are actually quite worried that we may not be able to get it done in time. So that's also important because there's an expectation that let me not call it an expectation. There's a fear that people have that there's need for electoral reform in order for us to have a better chance of free and fair elections. And that if that doesn't happen, the likelihood of a free and fair process, a level playing field, is lower.
Okay.
And so that's a concern that people have.
Okay. I know that there's a lot we can draw out of this conversation for today. We'll go on a quick break very soon, but my question definitely would start off from this issue of the Electoral Act. I know the last time it was a struggle to get it passed, particularly I think one item had to be the electronic nature that the election was gravitating towards. And this time around, it's still the same issue of electronic transmission of results because we had that as a feedback from the last election. And I recall at the time there was a talk about some villages would not have internet connectivity to be able to make this a reality. You've spoken also about we are seemingly gravitating towards a one-party state. You are not a member of the ruling party, the APC. You are a member of the PDP. It's also interesting to know your thoughts if that in itself is a big talking point, not just within the PDP, but within maybe perhaps other opposition parties, right? So I just want to get your thoughts on that after the break. We'll go for this quick break. We'll come back shortly. We have Funso Doherty here in the studio. This is the Recap on Lagos Talks. My name is Kolawole. I'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. You're listening to 91.3 Lagos Talks. This is the Recap. My name is Kolawole, and I have Mr. Funso Doherty here with me on the program. Okay, so just catching up with him and, of course, getting his thoughts on some of the things happening as far as electoral situation and politics in Nigeria is concerned. You're a member of the PDP right now. We have an issue with an electoral law that needs updating, that seems to be taking forever to achieve. You've also spoken about a move or like a drive towards making Nigeria a one-party state. Do you think it's an intentional thing from the leadership or from the ruling party, or do you think it's just a mishap on this end being of benefit to the ruling party?
No, I think that I don't think we're going to have a one-party state in the sense that no other parties will exist. But I do think, and it is quite evident that every attempt is being made by the ruling party to to weaken other parties. On some level, you would expect that normally in politics, right? But there's a level you go beyond where it starts to be a situation where you're almost fostering an effective lack of democracy. So what are some of the ways in which that is done? If you see a situation where opposition figures are being coerced to join the ruling party, such as in some cases we see where governors are being essentially strong-armed to cross carpet, and we're seeing that. If you see a situation where there is evidence that there's some form of infiltration of political parties. So in the PDP, for example, we have a situation where you have people who are loyal to the FCT minister who has openly said is working in the interest of the ruling party. So that's a form of infiltration of an opposition party, and we see different sorts of measures using both the instruments and capabilities of state to sort of shrink that opposition space. So it's not to say that the parties will not exist, but it's almost a situation where the electoral battle is being fought on multiple fronts, not just the electoral front, but using other instruments of state which the ruling party has at its disposal. So that's my own view.
But whose fault really is it? I mean, if I am a member of the ruling party and I'm trying to talk you into working with my party, and you voluntarily cross carpet into my party, whose fault is it? Is it the fault of the coercer, or how do you see it? Do you think it's something that is more that meets the eye, basically? What's the reason
more
behind
meets the eye, and I think we have to be, I think, we can deceive ourselves or we can face the truth. Coercion and of your own volition and two different things, right? So it is rarely the case that if people have the opportunity to operate freely, that they will, you will see the kind of mass movement that we've seen, right? So typically it's the case that, there is a form of coercion that is going on. And I think we all understand this. I think we also see, and, we can get into it in more detail, but this may not be the event, but I think we also see cases where, and we've seen it before, where people have said things like, if you join one party, then your sins are forgiven. We've had those kinds of statements in the past, right? And we've seen it, right? So, and then selective targeting of opposition figures, using investigative organizations of states and so on and so forth. We see this in practice. So, I mean, it's there's a saying that when the witch cries in the night and the child dies in the morning, who doesn't know that it's the witch that cried in the night that killed the child that died in the morning? So, on some level, we can, even a blind person can see, what essentially is happening.
So if they're being, because from what I'm trying to draw from what you're saying now is there's some sort of witch hunting that could be used as a tool to get people over, because you mentioned, your sins are forgiven situation. You come over,
which is a quote, by the way. Somebody said it.
So is that what you believe in?
No, not that I believe in. I know that it was said by Adams Oshomole.
No, I'm saying, do you believe that that's what's happening right now?
No, we see evidence
with
of
the cross carpeting.
We see some evidence of.
So it means there are sins that exist in the first instance.
Well, it's the sins as determined by the prosecuting agency. There may be, but why be selective?
Okay, but there are sins that exist.
There certainly may be sins that exist, but why be selective? That's the point.
Okay, let's talk about the Electoral Act again. What could be the reason why this has been delayed, and what do you think could really be injected into that document that could make it a huge leap from what we had in 2023?
Well, for me, I think that the Electoral Act, is good. There may be some loopholes. I don't know the full details of all the proposed amendments and so on. I think there's one of the things is the attempt to strengthen the electronic transmission provisions and ensure that it becomes something that is mandatory rather than optional in that sense. Whether that ultimately will be practical is one thing. Of course, my own view over and above everything is that the law is one thing, but the implementation and the operation of that law is everything, really. And so, it's not just about the laws, but it's also about INEC upholding the laws, implementing them diligently, and essentially fostering a situation in which the sort of environment that allows free and fair elections are put in place, and that involves many things. It involves INEC, it involves the security agencies, it involves them being fair. It involves the police, for example, if people are misbehaving at polling units, getting involved and stopping those things, which we've seen instances reported in the past where some of those things happen, and the security agencies look the other way. So, I mean, it's really about ensuring that all of those things practically are in place. The technology will help, because if it is mandatory to use technology and it can be enforced, then perhaps the room for discrepancies, alterations, those kinds of things in the collation process, which is where a lot of damage is done, will be much reduced. So to the extent that the safeguards around that can be strengthened in the law itself, that will help.
I mean, many would say, and I think you might also agree, because I personally would say, is it really foolproof, or is it just a step towards where we want to get to in terms of perfecting our electoral processes?
Yeah, and that's what I was alluding to when I said I think it's good to have the law, but it's really about the implementation of it, right? So it's it's a step. Nothing is going to be ever perfect, but the room for discrepancies, the room for alteration, the room for tampering with results, to the extent that the collation process is more electronic than manual, it will help.
Interesting. Okay. A couple of things as well. You sent out a letter on Saturday, January 24th, 2026. It was to Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, House Chambers, National Assembly Complex in Abuja. And the title of your letter was in response to the recent reported conferment of GCON National Honor on Mr. Gilbert Chagoury. And I went through your letter, and it was basically you criticizing the process with which that happened.
Yes.
Give us some more insight into this.
So, as you know, as you may know, it came into the public knowledge that the GCON award or national honor had been given to Gilbert Chagoury. Gilbert Chagoury is the head of the Chagoury Group, which includes, high tech and ITB and a number of other companies, and is someone who has been closely associated with, Mr. President. Now it turns out that he was awarded the GCON national honor on his birthday, which was 8th of January. Now that wasn't announced formally anyway, just we happened to be aware because some citizen made a congratulatory announcement to Mr. Chagoury, and that's how it came into the public knowledge. Now, of course, Mr. Chagoury is someone who has had a number of controversies attached to his name. And so there are some questions that have been raised as to whether, the award itself is merited or not. That's one set of things. But beyond the substantive merits of it, and those questions are very valid questions, by the way, but beyond the substantive questions around the merits of it, the process of it, I think, is particularly flawed. So, first of all, was the way in which we came to be aware of it. It wasn't announced formally. Secondly,
is that an obligation from the presidency or the leadership? Do they have to formally announce that?
Actually, so the president has the right to award national honors, but that right is not unfettered. So the right must be exercised, pursuant to something called a warrant. And that warrant, which is a subsidiary legislation under the National Honors Act, actually provides that the president should publish by Gazette his intention to award national honors to a particular recipient. So the warrant requires that, that there be an announcement of it, in effect. Now, it also provides that you can take an alternative process to that warrant, but that process, that warrant, or whatever alternative warrant you are pursuing, must also be documented and formally documented, and there's no evidence of that, right?
And you've confirmed that this is the case.
There's no evidence of it, so we're not aware. It's a public process, right? So if the public is not aware, it's a problem, right? Because it's a public process. This is a national honor. It's not a private honor. You understand? And it's the second highest national honor.
And then you mentioned as well that he wasn't in the country when it happened.
Then the instrument by which it is issued, right? It says that it's under the hand of the president on such and such a date in Abuja, right? But that cannot be because the president was not here on that date, right? And if it's going to be given under his hand, it's under his hands means that it's under his hand, right? On that space and on that day. So there are a lot of questions around the process itself, and I think that beyond the substantive questions, which are real substantive questions, which people might want to look into, but I think the questions around the process are important for the National Assembly to look into, and which is what I suggested. And I think this is important because, the issue of national honors is critical. It speaks to our values as a people, right? And it shows what we value and what we consider to be the things that we look up to. And by the way, this is not just any national honor. This is the Grand Commander of the Order of the Niger, right? So this is saying that as a people, these are the things that we hold high. This is the type of individual that we believe represents our values to the highest level, and therefore we're going to give him this award. And I think that it needs to be examined and looked into.
So just to be clear, you don't have an issue with the recipient; it's the process per se that you have an issue with.
Yeah. I personally, I have a personal view as to whether I think he merits the national honor. And my personal view is that I don't think he merits the national honor. But that's not my judgment to make. It is the president's judgment.
Is there a reason why you don't share the same sentiment with the president?
No, I think it's quite clear. Like I said, there are a number of controversies that have surrounded Mr. Chagoury.
Okay.
And many of them are in the public domain. He has been associated with issues around, in the past, ethical issues, not just in this jurisdiction but in other jurisdictions, right? Those are not things that I think are the kinds of things that we should associate with somebody to whom we want to award a national honor. That's my personal view. However,
issues on politics. Sorry to butt in like that, but I just want you to go deeper into some of these issues. We know we have limited time. Do they border on the Nigerian leadership, our processes, or is it a criminal situation, or what exactly are you talking about?
It is reported that he was associated with activities relating to government during the Abacha era, for example.
Okay.
And there are reports that as part of that process, he had to at some point refund certain monies back to the Federal Republic of Nigeria. These are the reports that are out there, and some of these reports are out in the public domain and are not, refuted, right? So, my personal view, if I were the president, I wouldn't make the award. But I'm not the president.
Is that the reason why you wrote the letter?
No, I think my letter was very clear that it's not about this, even though I don't think he merits it. If the president chose to give it to him, we cannot quarrel with the president. But there are elements of the process that are problematic, and that is primarily why I wrote the letter. Even though I have my doubts as to whether he merits the award. I don't think he does. But I recognize that that is not my call to make. It's the president's call to make. But I have a responsibility to raise what I believe to be substantive issues around the process and even the validity of the award, regardless of the substantive merits or otherwise of the award.
Okay. All right. So back to this issue of multi-parties and one-party state and everything. By the way, you're listening to Lagos Talks 91.3. My name is Kolawole Falodun, and Mr. Funso Doherty is here with me speaking on issues. So you mentioned the PDP. You mentioned the ADC as not having that. That's they don't trickle down deep as much as, say, for example, a popular party like the PDP would, or the APC or the likes. Do you think it's just about being known and not really about the perception of the potential electorates? Because they might know something, but they might have a perception about that party. What do you think the perception of your current party, the PDP, is at the local level, at every subnational right now?
I think that the issue of parties and how parties are known. There's also the issue of individuals and individual candidates who are running for office or different offices, right? I think we're at a time and in a season where people are less driven by parties and more driven by candidates. And the reason is because we have seen quite a lot of metamorphosis around the parties, right? So a lot of the people who are in the APC were once in the PDP, and a lot of people who are in ADC were once in APC or PDP. Do you see what I mean? So at the end of the day, the electorate has come to a place where, you may say unfortunately, but there's less emphasis on an ideological basis of political parties, right? And more of a sense of the individuals concerned, and whether the people believe in the individual concerned, and whether they know the platform on which the individual stands. You see what I mean? And ultimately, that is what I see is more driving the sentiments of people, and that's what I expect to be more prevalent in 2027. So it's really going to be, yes, party, but more individual, really, I think.
Don't you think we're a bit, you might be stretching that a bit because we belong to a certain, maybe, educated group who might think this way? Like you mentioned, when you go into the interlands, they might think differently. And when you look at the ballot on election day, you don't see anybody's names. You see the party logos. And most of the time, the information that goes around during election season is, when you see a logo, this is what to do. So maybe for the people who are educated, they know that this is the name behind this party at this level, whether it's gubernatorial, whether it's senatorial, and so on and so forth. So don't you think we're stretching things a lot more than it should if we come to the conclusion that it's now a matter of personalities and not really the parties?
I never said that it's only about personalities and not parties. Okay. So I said a lot of it is about personalities, but also parties. That is why the knowledge of the parties is also important, because people cannot vote for a party that they don't know. You see what I mean?
Okay.
So to the hinterlands which you talked about, right? If people don't know the party, right, they can't vote for the party. Right? So there are places where you go, for example, that all people know is APC and PDP.
So back to the question about the individual. They might know the party and don't know who is running.
Chances are they're likely to know the individual of a party that is known. That's the likelihood, right? So if it's a presidential race, they will likely know. If it's a governorship race, they will likely know, right? Even if it's a senatorial race, they will likely know, because these are local elections, right? For parties that are known. Okay. Now you have a challenge for a party that is not known, because then you have a very big task to get the candidates known. Do you see what I mean? So it's both the party and the candidate.
Okay. All All right, we can take messages, maybe one or two messages. 0809-234-5913. You can also call in on that WhatsApp line. If you have questions for my guest, 0809-234-5913. I need to go on a quick break right now. We need to wrap things up as soon as possible. 0704-700-8913. 0704-700-8913 is the number to call, the box line to get in touch with us in the studio. We'll go for this quick break. We'll come back and then we'll wrap things up. This is a recap on 91.3. Welcome back. You're listening to 91.3 Lagos Talks. Welcome back to the recap. Okay, so let's quickly wrap things up because of our time and your time as well. Don't forget, at the flip side of 6, we'll be having the Wise Men of Comedy, Okay Bakassi Senator a cappella, on the program. All right, Mr. Doherty. So now we're at a point where a lot of people are not very optimistic about the elections. It just seems like we're going to be making the same mistakes from 2023. I like to think for and against a position. I'm hoping for the best. I'm expecting the worst. Best case scenario, perhaps, is that they do a U-turn and the National Assembly passes the Electoral Act, and it gives us a better chance of having a more fulfilling election. The worst case scenario is nothing happens. If nothing happens, how much of a likelihood will it be that would make the same errors from 2023?
Well, I mean, if we are proceeding under the same Electoral Act as we had in 2023, in which case the new Electoral Act is not passed, then, I guess a lot will depend on the new leadership of INEC, because INEC is under a new leadership, and remains to be seen how it will operate under that new leadership. Is it possible for reasonably free and fair elections to be conducted using the existing Electoral Act? Yes, if we have an INEC that is operating optimally, right? It's possible, right? Because what the new Electoral Act is trying to do is to close the loopholes and close the space that allows for irregularities. And I think that if the electoral umpire is resolute and is prepared to put in what it takes, we could get there. The other point I would make is that, even with the existing Electoral Act, if the electorate has a very strong view to move in a particular direction, it is difficult to overwhelm that will of the people.
Even with electoral malpractice? Even
with the existing electoral, yes, because those electoral malpractices can only be done within some margin of error. What do I mean? If in a particular election there's a landslide will of the people for a particular side, it's going to be difficult to overwhelm that. If 75%, 80% of the people vote in a particular direction, it's going to be difficult to overwhelm that.
Do you think the ADC has a chance with their all running around to form a coalition?
No, I think the idea of a coalition is very premature to start forming judgments about coalition. The fact that a number of names that we know have gone into that party does not mean that that it is untested in that sense, right? And remember that there's still a long road. There's primaries, there will be fallout from that, and all of that, and there are contending forces in there as well, right? So I think let's not be too quick to form judgments. And I think saying that it's a coalition is overstating it a bit, right? So let's wait and see how it all plays out. But now, without personalizing or putting it to a particular party, what I'm saying is that if that and whoever happens to be the beneficiary of that will of the people, right, in a particular direction, if the people by significant majority choose to do that,
Mm.
it's difficult to overwhelm that. Where you will see electoral malpractices being able to be used effectively is when the results are somewhat marginal, right? Do you see what I mean? So one person has maybe 60% of the vote, the other person has 40% of the vote, or 55, 45. Then, you can twist that 10 difference that lies between them, right? But if we see a massive movement in one direction, right, it's difficult to overwhelm that. Now, it shouldn't be the case. Now, that is not an ideal situation, is what I'm saying. In other words, all we're trying to push for in the electoral process is to say, that's not good enough. Let's go to a place where if it is by, 1% or 2% that somebody has won, let it be the case that person has won.
Interesting. And then finally, and I'm sure a lot of people will have this at the back of their mind as we wrap things up, would you, Funso Doherty, be making steps or taking steps towards being in contention next year, 2027?
I've already announced that I'm going to be in the race for governor for Lagos State. It's not hidden.
Okay.
And so certainly I'm in the race. And by the way, I have never been out of the fray. I have remained active and involved in governance right from the last election up till today. And that's part of what we are here talking about today. So for me, this is not a every 4 year kind of deal. Many of my interventions in the governance area have actually affected the way in which governance has been done and some of the decisions and actions of government. And I think that this is what an active politician should do. You don't have to be in government to be in governance, but I will be running for governor in 2027.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Funso, and we look forward to having you next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
All right, you're listening to 91.3 Lagos Talk. That's it on the recap this evening. We are done, at least for today. Coming up next at the top of the hour, it'll be time for the Wise Men of Comedy on It's Okay with Okay. My name is Kolawole Falodun. This is The Live Drive.